So I'm super excited today because I have here with me Bill Hefferman. Bill is a longtime colleague and a friend and also a client, and we've been working together for a while in my coaching program, Expert on a Mission. And I wanted to have Bill have this conversation about resilience today because, as you will discover, Bill knows a thing or two about resilience. And he's very knowledgeable. He's obviously an expert in resilience. And when I reflect on my journey as an entrepreneur, I didn't realize that, how much the resilience, was how important it was until I started, hitting some limitations, hitting some big problems that got me to think about, okay, what is it that I can do internally and also in my day to day to be more resilient. I mean, entrepreneurship is it's not for everyone. It's not always joyful. It's hard. It's a bunch of up and down. So, Bill, that's why I wanted to have you today here with me. So, why don't you first of all, why don't you tell us what you do in your own words because it would be probably better than me trying to describe it.
Right. So I am, in essence, a consultant and a speaker. I've been my profession is organization development, and I have been doing that for over 30 years, both as an internal consultant, working for big corporations within their HR departments, but also as working for external consulting firms. And now for the last year, working to establish Bill Hefferman Consulting, doing this on my own. And my particular niches and my specialty is around resilience and adaptability in organizations. How do we grow organizations? How do we shape organizational cultures to be resilient and adaptable in the face of all the tremendous change and pressures and stress and
Mm.
adversities that are facing organizations today? So my primary modality in terms of what I do is what I really love is to design and deliver interactive workshop experiences to leaders, teams, and individuals to help them learn about the underpinnings of resilience, the scientific underpinnings of it, and how it works, and then how to apply that to themselves as individuals, to their teams, and to the people that they lead.
How did you start working on resilience? Can you trace the day you woke up
Mhm.
and you thought, I'm gonna focus on resilience?
Yeah, it really was like one conversation, like
Did it
somebody.
happen? Did it happen like that at coming
It,
out of the bed?
yeah, sort of.
Okay.
So I in early 2001, I started working for a large multinational high-tech company, household name, large corporation. And they, like a lot of tech companies at the time, were undergoing the dot-com implosion, having gotten involved in all this Internet of Everything,
Hmm.
sort of crazy, Wild West, had gotten involved with some businesses that were not in its wheelhouse, were not in its core capabilities. And they found out that they weren't that successful
Mm.
in that, and they were shutting businesses down. And
Mm.
I was hired as a organization development practitioner
Hmm.
in this new business group with the expressed purpose to do change. My first assignment was to help manage the change and transition
Hmm.
with shutting down these businesses. And as I was talking with another consultant friend of mine about how our normal tools and tricks for managing change in organizations wasn't really serving those people who were being heavily impacted, whose jobs were getting, who were getting redeployed or whose jobs were getting displaced. And so she asked me, do you know about resilience?
Hmm.
And I sort of said, like everybody, is, well, yeah, okay, and sort of, I got the basic concept. I know what that means.
Hmm. Hmm.
And psychologically, and she said, no, 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 I'll tell you, there's a guy locally here, a guy named Al Siebert,
Yeah.
who wrote a book on it called The Resiliency Advantage. And he's a friend of mine, and I can introduce you to him. And here's his book. Here's the title of the book. You should check it out. So, but almost right away I went, as and when I got the concept, I went, oh, of course, this is what's needed.
Mm,
And it just
mm,
struck me as a thing that's almost like the flip side of the coin that we've never seen or
mm.
that we've never pay attention to. In other words, if everything that we do as leaders, as managers, as change managers, as facilitators is to facilitate to help people almost like a midwife through the
Yeah.
birth process or this transition process. Um, but resilience is about what does everybody bring to the table already naturally inherent in themselves, their God-given or nature-given capabilities to thrive and during change and to bounce back from difficulty because we
Mm.
all do. And so it just struck me as very obvious. And then the longer story, but I'll make the shorter longer story.
Yeah, yeah.
But going, the reason why it resonated with me so strongly is because
Mm,
I had long been, here I was, 2001, 40 years old, and so I'd, been around a little while, and I, what really appealed to me was the whole um, psychology of it, and
mm,
that and the whole um, personal spiritual development that we all need to do in our lives to be the people that we want to be and to do the things that we want to do.
it.
And I'd grown up in a really difficult household with
Mhm.
alcoholism and all that. And so I'd done lots of therapy and group process and lots of reading and I'd gotten involved with some meditation instruction and I'd been a longtime meditator. So this whole topic of how do we ourselves flourish in the face of life's difficulties had
Mhm.
long been a part of my thinking and my personal practice. So then
Mm.
resilience was like, this is it. There's a name
Was
for what I want to
was
do.
But yeah, it was kind of a, oh, aha, it's actually something that people have wrote have written about, and there's actually a name. um so you picked up the book, I guess, or did you
Yeah,
that
I called Al Siebert and I'm like, hey, I'd like to meet you. And
nice.
I started,
Yeah.
and then I was just devouring book after book after book
Mm.
on the topic.
So
Uh,
what's so many years after, and
yeah,
the context for this conversation is expert on a mission.
yeah,
All right. Really framing our work as, probably something that is bigger than just the transactional. We're doing consulting or coaching or advising, but is more like a cause or something that
like
transports
a
us.
mission, it's like a life mission or purpose.
Exactly. So how did you, and you know, I want to know two things, like how do you describe your mission in this context, and how did that evolve? How did you figure out that, okay, this is really what you wanted to do?
Right. Um, so as I dug deep into this topic and developed my expertise pretty quickly in this space, um, I wanted to share it. And I was in a position working for this high-tech company. I was in a position in my role to be able to design and deliver workshops.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but it wasn't in my main line of roles and responsibilities, but I had enough freedom
Uh-huh.
where I was just allowed, to do this. And then I started getting invitations from groups of, could you go talk to this group of trainers or this group of administrative assistants or this group of managers? And so I just kept developing and designing and delivering and learning by doing. And um, and then and I got to do that for 12 or 13 years as part of this major corporation.
Mm-hmm.
Until
Just
I was then,
just on resilience.
well, that was my passion. That was sort of like one of my passion areas. I mean, there's another passion area where I got really interested in positive psychology and the application of positive psychology
Mm-hmm.
in this field, and there's really a lot of crossover between positive psychology and
Mm.
resilience and adaptability. So, anyway, I also had a special love for and practice around teaching teams and organizations how to have more of a strengths-based approach to human
Mm.
development,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
leveraging all the Gallup material and all that. Um,
Gallup,
but
the company that does the survey.
the company that does the survey, the
Yeah.
Strengths Finder
Mm,
um,
right.
survey, that's the Gallup organization. And so um, the but I was also doing my regular day job along
Right.
with. But then I was laid off
Uh-huh.
during one of the many reorganizations.
Hmm.
And I'm like, and I had always escaped these reorgs because I was the change guy. I also, I had a really strong understanding of change
Right.
management, and
You were facilitating the change, the
I was
reorg,
facilitating the change. And
on the
so,
sideline, and now you're in in the movement,
but
in the way.
eventually they're like, it all caught up with me and they're like, you're out of here. And so, um, and what was really instructive to me was that I knew, cognitively, I knew a lot about resilience,
Hmm.
but I really hadn't had to apply it to
Hmm.
myself in any sort of super significant way, like losing your job, which is really a big shock to the system, especially when you're in charge of, feeding kids and paying a mortgage and all that. It can be very shocking. And what I found was that I um, was having a hard time applying this sort of bookish
Mm,
cognitive knowledge.
mm,
And it was then that one of my big realizations, or one of my ahas around this, was that it's not just enough to know about it. You can't just go through a workshop and then it's like, oh, check the box and go, okay, great, I got resilience, thanks. It's that it really has to become part of your nervous system. It really has to become deeply ingrained in you as a way of thinking and as a way of seeing, and really to become a habit.
mm.
Um, and so I started, so that caused me to
So
dig in deeper there.
what I'm taking away is from this conversation what I knew before this call, obviously, but what you're reminding me of is it's not something you get in a book. It's not you don't just think, you're gonna buy a book on resilience and then you read it and then you're good to go. It
Right,
has to be it's as you said, it's ingrained in your body because it's very tied to your nervous system, how your body reacts to difficulty and uncertainty, and sometimes also um, made up things that our own
right.
mind, our own inner narrative generates too. Um, and I want to go back to a couple of, I think, important things to highlight here. The first thing I heard is it became a passion because it was tied to your life. Also, was a topic that was that you felt you could have used early on, maybe more. And then second of all, you had the freedom to do it, right? So
Right. And the
it
resources, meaning the time
the
to be
time,
able
yeah,
to pursue
yeah,
this. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And
So
and 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 the available audience that I had a 120,000 person organization of guinea pigs
right.
to go try this stuff.
Yeah. So it's kind of serendipitous that it started this way, right? You didn't go on your own right away and say, "Oh yeah, I'm just going to establish my own shop," and then, let's explore resilience. I think it's an important learning here is that you let it develop and you let it become, what you're really passionate about in a context in an environment that gave you the means to do that.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very, very cool. But I also hear that it became you since you had to be more resilient because of all those changes and layoffs, you applied it to you first. So there was a mission for you first.
Right.
That's kind of
Right. And that was, my research was largely me search along
hmm
the way.
hmm
And then in 2013, when I landed in the other consulting firm through which I know you,
yeah. Hmm.
um, and we did a lot of change management as part of that consulting firm.
Hmm.
But the change management people that really had their hands on the practice
Yeah.
weren't so interested in resilience.
Mm. Why
And
is that? Why is that?
it was funny, but one of the leaders said to me, one of the practice leaders said, "Oh, well, you're either born resilient or you're not." And I'm like, "You don't know how wrong that is."
Damn. It's interesting is that it's exactly what I was gonna say in the beginning is that it was my belief too. Either you're a tough nut to crack or not, but you
Right.
can't become this.
Or that resilience is about being tough. Even
Uh,
even that belief.
okay, so teach us about. that? Like, what is it then?
Well, what was funny was just to finish that
Oh, yeah,
story.
that
A
story. Yeah.
couple of years later,
Then you'll tell us about what is it.
when
Yeah.
this consulting firm went through a big break between and split in the practice between
Uh-huh.
some of the founders, the person who had said to me that you either have resilience or not, she came back to me and said, "So, tell me about resilience."
Hmm.
And then that caused me to then apply for some speaking gigs with through the Association of Change Management Professionals,
Mhm,
ACMP.
mhm,
And then I did like 7 ACMP events and really honed my message and and really updated my whole messaging and understanding of resilience around that time.
mhm, mhm.
So your question was, so, what are some of my
Yeah.
key understandings or
Yeah. What is, if it's not about being tough, what is it then?
right. So, neurologically speaking, if you think of a horizontal line
Hmm.
and if as a visual metaphor, and if you're above the line, then you're in that state of you feel safe, you feel connected,
Hmm.
you feel you're in optimal human functioning.
Hmm.
You're in what they call ventral vagal. It's our vagus nerve in the front that's mediating the show, and it's when we're really at our best.
Mm.
But then when we feel threatened in some fashion, when our body, through what's called neuroception, picks up on some sort of danger. And it can be a message we're giving ourselves through our own beliefs. It
Yep.
could be something from the environment that we're hearing or seeing or perceiving. It could be an interaction with another person. But something happens where we feel not safe
Mm.
and we go down into that fight flight state of being
Mhm.
that's mediated by our sympathetic nervous system, or if we even go further into a state of threat, if we feel even less safe than that, then we digress into what's called the dorsal vagal set, but that's the fight, that's the freeze and freeze up. um, and and what resilience is recognizing that that process is very human, very natural. It's
Okay.
something that we all do. And that resilience is about having the flexibility in our nervous system to be able to
Yeah.
come back out of that fight, flight, freeze and up into that state of safety and connection.
It's so fascinating as you were describing that line. I was picturing myself, here. I sit at this desk for most of my days and most of the time during the days. And I was kind of picturing this, like there are moments, during the day when I feel great. I feel above the line. I feel ready to work. I feel happy. I feel joyful. And then as an entrepreneur, I scan emails and different requests and things and projects. And sometimes the smallest news, even if I was interesting, I misinterpret it.
Right,
I read it wrong. And all of a sudden I can feel my body like start start blocking or being tense, or my heart rate goes up for the smallest thing. And
right,
every time I'm like, how is that possible? That's the
right.
smallest detail.
Well, and then the other interesting thing about our autonomic nervous systems is that so those three states that I described
Mhm.
of above the line and then the two states below the line, fight, flight, freeze, and then above the line, our optimal state is is that our so the connection between our brains and
Mhm.
our body, the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system innervates all our major organ systems.
Yeah.
So, and then, and that operates a lot faster than our brains do. And so you'll pick up a signal somehow through this neuroception unconsciously, and then your body sends that signal to your brain, and then you create a story. And so
Mm.
in the what they've come to understand about our autonomic nervous systems is that story follows state, that our stories that we create come actually grow. They don't start in our heads. They come out of our brain picking up on these signals from our body and then making a story about it.
Okay, so let me make sure I got this right. And this is I you probably told me this before, but it feels new. So
Yeah, yeah.
or maybe it's a good refresher, but so you're saying that the state, the what the body feels comes before the story, which means the interpretation of it.
Yes.
The
And
stories are not, they don't start in our mind.
they do not.
Ha.
They
Okay.
start that they're triggered.
Right.
When you tell a story, oh, this is great, I feel good, or oh my God, this is horrible,
Right.
this
Right.
is terrible. Your body has already picked up on those signals or created those signals
Hmm.
and sent them to your brain, and then your brain goes, oh, how do I need to interpret this? And then as humans, we create these stories around this. And the value of understanding this, that story follows state, is it helps when you can catch yourself with awareness and and take a look at what's going on. And if you have that perspective that story follows state, and then you think, well, maybe this story that I'm telling myself, okay, maybe it's just really not,
Mm.
maybe it's just this sort of catastrophe story that I'm telling, and I might be misinterpreting, like I have some gas, or I have some chest tightness, or
Yeah.
something that's causing me to feel discomfort, and
Mm.
that I'm creating this story. Um, and so it can help slow down the whole process and
Hmm.
put us more into a here and now present moment consciousness that can help slow down that process, and then give us greater access with mindfulness
Right.
to then our more calm thoughts, in which we might say then, okay, wait a minute, is this really what's going on? And we can check things out. And then we can ask ourselves, this there's this methodology that I use. It's a shorthand of a methodology that's a longer thing, but it's awareness, acceptance, commitment,
Okay.
where you're aware of, it's like, whoa, wow, I'm telling myself this story here. And and acceptance is not sort of like, well, I guess I just have to suffer here, but more like, okay, this is just a story. This is going on. This is
Hmm.
my present reality. It's that sort of neutral, kind of mindful
Hmm.
acceptance.
So you're
And
like
then
kind of taking some distance from it.
taking some distance, and they talk about this
Yeah.
in acceptance and commitment therapy, where
Hmm.
you defuse from your thinking. You don't believe everything you think. You learn how to not believe everything you think.
Yeah.
And then the commitment is, then you or reorient. It goes, okay, so but what are my core values here? What do I really want to create here in this situation?
Hmm.
Um, what are some what are the best possible outcomes?
Hmm.
And you reorient your thinking towards not what you don't want, but what you want to create.
Yeah.
And I'd say that that's really my my sort of number one go-to method in resilience, is that acceptance, awareness, acceptance, and commitment.
So a ton of examples come to mind. Um, like um, and that's true for entrepreneurs, like for and
Absolutely.
you're an entrepreneur, so well, let's see if that resonates with you. But for me, it will be things like, um, oh, this client wants to work with me, but they don't have enough budget. Like, and they haven't even talked money, and already that story
Right.
is popping up. So that's starting from the state, like it's starting from my body, and then I kind of recognize the process that you're describing, which is, first of all, like, recognizing it is the first step. Sometimes I don't even recognize it. Like that could be one. Another one is, hey, I really want to write this piece about this idea, but yeah, everybody has written about this, and so what's the point of writing, another? What's about writing about this another time? Yeah, like the imposter syndrome, like the
Right.
saboteur. That
Right.
saboteur will come and stop you from doing
Right.
anything because supposedly we've talked too much about this.
Right.
So,
Right.
so these are
Yeah.
like my biggest examples, but I have
They're great
what
examples.
what are your signature moments, or where you have to apply your own remedy of resilience.
Yeah. So the ones that have been most painful, and uh from which I've really gained the most of, in my understanding of resilience from my being an entrepreneur,
Hmm.
is um and I know I'm not the only one that experiences this, but the waking up at like 3 or 4 in the morning,
Oh yeah.
and then and you start ruminating on
Hmm.
on all the things that can go wrong. And because we're lying down and because of the state of our brain waves at that point, we have very little executive control, and we're really ruled by our limbic systems, by our amygdala and all that. And so it's a horrible place to try to do any problem solving.
Mm.
Um,
So
and
don't try to problem solve right away at 3 a.m. as you wake up in fear of
yeah,
not
because that's
not
what
making it
rumination is,
through
right?
the end of the year or something like that.
It's like rumination. I mean, that's what rumination is. It's like you have one foot nailed to the floor and you just keep going around. It's like,
Okay.
yeah, well, I could do this. Yeah, but that won't work because of that. Yeah, but you could try this. Well, that won't work because of this. And
Mm.
you just keep going around and around. And so to be able to um, baseball, just stop and go, okay,
Mhm.
you know, you're in no position to do any problem solving here right now. And then to just kind of accept where I'm at.
Mm.
And usually, like, if I take it, I'll give you an example. So it's like, I have no pipeline. My pipeline's really weak. I don't have any money coming in. Oh my God. How am
Mhm.
I going to pay my mortgage? Oh God, my family's going to end up in a cardboard box out on the street. It's
Those thoughts never occurred to me, by the way, Bill.
right. And then, and so what I turned my mind to is like, oh, what do I value? And and this actually came from in my working with you
Uh-huh.
about being able to turn my attention to what matters or what I care about or what is the purpose of my business.
Mm.
And really the purpose of my business is really the purpose of my life, which
Mm.
is to enable and inspire leaders, teams, and individuals to really thrive and grow through all this difficulty and all this craziness that we're facing.
Mhm.
And so as I turn toward that commitment, toward that value of wanting to provide value to people and seeing that I really have something of value to offer, what happens is that by turning towards that sort of big picture thinking, we flip the switch on all these neurochemicals, and we get it puts us into more visionary space
Mm.
and more heart space. So
Mhm.
we get more oxytocin flowing, we get more endorphins flowing, we get all these happy brain chemicals that light us up into that resilient space, or and at the same time help dampen those fires of fight, flight, freeze of the sympathetic nervous system of adrenaline and cortisol and all those. And so and then if you throw in some slow, deep breathing in that as well, that can
Yep.
also help with that as well.
Because it slows down your heartbeat, just regulates your nervous system. Is that correct way to say that?
Yeah, exactly. If you breathe, particularly when you breathe out
Mm-hmm.
more slowly than you breathe in,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that there's a number of ways that triggers our our rest and digest, or
Right.
that safety and calm space.
Yeah.
Because when you breathe out more slowly than anyway, there's a whole physiological description of it, which I
That,
won't
yeah. But that, and
bore
that,
you
that's
on.
that's what you have. That's what you teach people to do also.
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why
Mm-hmm.
I spend so much time and so much energy on talking about the neuroscience and the evidence-based aspects of resilience, is because, and I know this from other teachers, that I've heard this from another neuroscientists that I've heard speak about this, that when you understand the mechanism of something, of how it works for you neurophysiologically,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that it gives you a sense of agency, and that it gives that sense of, it helps break through that sort of pessimism that we face
Mm-hmm.
when you hear these sort of tips to well, just breathe, or just do this mind body hack. And sometimes that works, but a lot of times you kind of go, you might try it in a sort of a mechanical way, but when you really understand the biological mechanism underneath it,
Mm-hmm.
it gives you greater confidence in that. So you tend to try it more and you tend to persevere more in leveraging that. But also, I think that also, again, that sense of agency or control,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, uh, uh, keeps us going on that.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Bill, maybe one last question. I mean, first of all, you just answer, my earlier question about your mission, even in greater, in more, I think meaningful terms, right? It's giving people that possibility. I can't remember exactly what your words were.
Right.
To me, that came like, okay, this is a chance, this is a possibility. And I love how you articulated both from the scientific standpoint to also the experience standpoint. Like you have to really feel it in your body. Um, why does this matter today more than ever? I mean, that's
Right.
probably that's a setup question, maybe, but
Yeah.
but what are and in your opinion, like as far as what you see around us, why should we lean more into learning that practice, learning resilience, either when we are a solopreneur or part of a team or large organization? I think to me, it's something that you don't just leave at work. You bring in also, it's a great tool that you also bring also at work with your family, with your kids,
Right.
your neighbors, with whoever, and for yourself. So why
Yeah.
does this matter now more than ever?
You know, so when the consulting firm that you and I worked for was acquired by one of the big four consulting firms
Hmm.
back right before the pandemic.
Hmm.
Um, I went from being, sort of having this side project of resilience to then 2 months into our being acquired, the pandemic hit.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, resilience was the Merriam-Webster word of the year, literally.
Wow.
And 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 this thing that people would only show some interest in if I started speaking about it, we're actually asking for it. Like, can you guys do anything around resilience or whatever? And so then on top of it, there's a thing that happened during the pandemic and as a result of the pandemic. And
Mhm.
as much as I like working from home and being able to, you know, sit here in my pajamas with a nice shirt on, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I have shorts on, not a pajama. So the um what's happened is um we have we get a lot out of our interactions with one another, in really great benefit out of our social interactions.
Mhm.
Um, that really centers on around co-regulation of our emotions.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the people who, look at neuroscience, at organizations from that neuroscientific perspective, has spoken about how what's happened during the pandemic is that you look at the incredible increase in mental illness
Mhm.
around the world, in anxiety, depression, and other mental disorders. And there's some evidence that this has come largely as a result of our decreased socialization. And when you even think of the huge polarization of our politics in the world today, now there's lots of reasons why that has happened, but part of that is due to our isolation.
Mhm.
And um and also um so in an organizational context, on top of all the the stuff that we're just normally facing in terms of layoffs and downsizing and all the organizational pressures and the incredible all the transformation and digital transformation in our business world today, um, you know, on and then compounded by the fact that you have this increased stress levels and load, just and anxiety and depression, etc. And then the separation of people from one another and from their workplaces. And so what ends up happening is, and we just see that in organizations today, you look at the great resignation of people going, I'm out, like I can't handle it anymore. I can't do
Mhm.
this organizational thing and pretend that I'm a machine or that I'm not a human.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but the practice that in my research over the last, particularly over the last 5 or 6 years, I've been really focusing on leading for resilience? What are those leadership and managerial behaviors and team behaviors that we can demonstrate with one another so
Mhm.
that we can all better co-regulate
Mm.
our nervous systems
Mm.
and show up? Because if you ask the business case for resilience, it's like you just have to ask what happens when we're not resilient, when
Right.
we're in fight, flight, and freeze.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is that people are completely, hobbled by or crippled emotionally by in these states of fight, flight, and freeze. Because when you're in that below the line state, you you have very little cognitive flexibility, so your problem solving capabilities go down. You
Just
tend
like
to
you were
be
describing at 3 a.m., you're spinning in
Yeah,
circles.
yeah,
Except
and
it's the end of the day.
you tend to be less collaborative.
Right.
You very much are less creative because your thinking becomes more black and white.
Right.
You try out things that you've tried before.
Yeah.
You go to simple, easy answers like let's just build a wall, or let's just, you go to these very black and white solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, but if we can create teams and cultures and organizations where leaders and people demonstrate, some of these co-regulatory behaviors of really connecting with people as people
Yeah.
and having compassion for people and leveraging, what's known as, the core factors of intrinsic motivation by helping people have a sense of mastery and purpose and connection with one another and autonomy, that these are all factors within the resilient leader toolkit. These are all behaviors within the
Yeah.
behaviors that leaders can demonstrate. And
And yeah, no, no, just as you say, so I think it resonates a lot with me is resilience starts with resilience is collective, first of all, right?
very much so.
It starts with a group. Just to illustrate, share my experience with it. During COVID, I was already set up to work remotely here at MetaHelm. I started in 2018. Um, but COVID, and I had still meetings, and I was collaborating with clients face to face. Then obviously during 2020, the COVID time was isolation, of course. And I remember this client in Seattle. It was towards the end of 2020, early 2021, where we could start, having in-person meeting again more easily. Asked me if we could meet in person, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you asked this." It was like a physical need for me to be with others in an office setting and just socialize. I just felt like I needed it. And then fast forward, earlier this year, I implemented a new policy. No client Zoom call for me on Fridays. No,
Yeah.
not, I'll make an exception if really there is an emergency, but I use the day to actually go meet people. And that's what you and I do.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
That's what you and I did, in February.
We did that right when you came down to
I came to Portland and see you. So that's my day where I cultivate my resilience in that way. So,
Yeah.
Bill, I hope many people will watch this conversation. I will post it, in different various places. So please tell us where we can find you more easily. And I know you have something that people
Yeah.
should
Yeah.
do. And I like that. I like that. Like, we're action oriented at MetaHelm. So tell us where we can read more about your work and what people should do with you.
All right. And we might have to put it in the show notes, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so find me at, wait for it, billhefferman.com.
Oh, surprise.
All one word, billhefferman.com. And there on my website, at the top of the page, one of the toolbars, one of the links is for an LRQ assessment.
Mhm.
That's capital L, capital R, capital Q assessment. And that LRQ stands for Leadership Resilience Quotient.
Okay.
And that's an assessment instrument that I co-developed with some old colleagues from the high-tech company that I used to work for, who are very schooled in such matters as creating surveys.
Mhm.
And there you go. And then you can see the LRQ assessment.
So
And
that, so that's yeah, that's your website. Isn't that a great website, by the way?
if you click on that LRQ assessment,
There it is. Okay, that's where we go.
yeah, and
Gotcha.
then And then you fill out this 28 item survey,
Okay.
self-assessment.
Okay.
And when you submit it,
Yep.
you'll get an invitation to set up some time with me, and I'll offer you a free 30-minute consultation
Perfect.
on your results, and we can go over your results. You'll also, get all your results. And along with that, I'm in the process of writing a book
Yeah.
about each one of these core 28 behaviors. And if you are needing development in any one of those 28,
Yeah.
what can you do? What are some tips and suggestions for development? What are some articles and books and videos that you can look at to learn about that particular behavior?
Awesome. Awesome. Bill, thank you so much. I also saw on your website we can connect with you on LinkedIn, which you and I are.
LinkedIn and also email, and also on the website, go ahead and poke around, but there's a couple of worksheets that people can access and download that are personal resilience development worksheets.
Awesome. Awesome talking to you, Bill. Thank you so much for this literally little crash course on resilience today.
Yeah, you always, and what's funny about, I love this because I was really looking forward to this phone call because I knew, based on experience, that every time that I talk about it, it just, oh my God, you talk about being above the line. It just puts me into the green zone. It just puts me into complete and
So
total.
that's your MetaHelm right there. That's what guides you as a guide. Like as soon as you engage in this topic,
Oh yeah, no,
you're
it just,
above the line,
I'm,
you feel
yeah, no, it's like,
activated.
it spins me up. It's like,
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
flip the switch, baby. Here we go.
We're on. Thank you so much, Bill. I wish you good luck, and I know I will see you around very, very soon. So,
Yeah.
thank you so much for making the time today.
Yeah. Thanks for this opportunity. It was great, as always.